Hello, everyone. Scholarship Track's live session on improving job search strategies. Thank you for joining and hope you enjoy. We have Dean Kulaweera, an IT recruitment expert and a job search coach. He's also the founder of Dean Kulaweera International Inc., here to share his insights on job search strategies which are practical, effective, and pragmatic. If you have any queries, please post them in the chat. We will address them at the end. Over to you, Dean.
All right, thank you so much for the intro, Veda, and thank you again for inviting me. And I think Scholarship Track is such a fantastic resource for so many students and new graduates. So I was very impressed when I was researching Scholarship Track. So for those of you who are students and new grads tuning in for the first time, make sure you stay close to these folks. Seems like there's very good interviews from experts and from various fields. So it's a great resource. I wish I had it when I was a student and a new graduate, but all of you folks are very fortunate and lucky. All right. So definitely, again, thank you so much to Scholarship Track for inviting me. Thank you, Veda. So let me just quickly share my screen, everyone. I'm going to go through with my PowerPoint, and then we'll get through with this presentation. And any questions along the way, any comments, you want to share your frustrations as a student, as a new grad, definitely feel free to let me know, and I'll get to any questions and comments shortly as well. And again, feel free to introduce yourself in the comments as well. So today what I'm going to be speaking about is 3 keys to dominate your job search in any market conditions. Now, I know for most of you who are tuning in and watching, you're mostly students and new graduates, but if any of you watching happen to be no longer classified as students or new graduates, I still want you to stick around because this information is going to be very much relevant and pertinent to you as someone in maybe someone who has their work experience and they're moving along. So I know Veda provided an introduction, but just a bit more information about myself, because I want you to feel confident about the information you're receiving. So I just wanted to provide more context about myself and why I'm someone qualified to provide you with the information I'm sharing today, which you can then take away and apply to your job search. So firstly, my experience is based on working 8+ years in the recruitment industry as a staffing recruiter. I specialize in the recruitment of IT professionals. Now, I've recruited because, since I was working in the staffing industry for staffing agencies, this allowed me the opportunity to recruit on so many different types of clients, ranging from startups, early stage startups, all the way to, well-established, large-size multinational corporations that have existed long before even I was born. And for a variety of different industries and sectors as well. So I listed some of them here, but tech, retail, e-commerce, government, public sector, banking, finance, insurance, etc. Primarily in the North American region, right? So primarily out of Canada. I'm based out of Toronto, Canada, and I've recruited for positions in various cities across North America. And I've dealt with the various levels of stakeholders at these organizations for these clients, right? Being involved in so many recruitment cycles. And, I've been in negotiations from people ranging from HR personnel, in-house corporate recruiters as my points of contact, all the way up to and through to, C-level executives and business owners and entrepreneurs as my points of contact as well. So the information that I share in this session, and if you happen to be following me on social media, or even if you follow me afterwards on social media, you'll find the reason why my advice and tips are very practical and very much applicable to the real world is because of all this experience I've been privileged to have working in the staffing industry as a recruiter. Now, another side note is, although I did specialize in IT, the information I will be sharing today is applicable whatever field or skill set or area that you've been studying in school, because the fundamentals behind recruitment and hiring are aside from some differences here and there based on industry, are the same across the board. I'm going to be focusing on what's similar and what's the same, so everyone, no matter your background, no matter your skill set, you'll be able to apply that to your search. I'm also one of the most well-known tech recruiters and job search coaches in Toronto. I've been posting job search content, especially on LinkedIn, since 2016, and I've just recently passed over a following of over 30,000 on LinkedIn alone. So definitely, make sure you follow me on LinkedIn. I definitely post a lot of content on there. And, some of the most frequent feedback I get from people who follow me is my information is very concise. It's very, very to the point. And I hope to exercise that and showcase that on this presentation as well. I've also been a panelist, guest speaker, and keynote speaker at over 30+ events, especially over the last year. Over the last year, of course, primarily virtual events because of the pandemic. But I've definitely had that privilege as well. So today's agenda, and by the way, just a heads up to everyone watching, make sure you're prepared to take notes. This is definitely a session you want to be taking notes, because I'm going to be sharing tips and advice that you're going to be able to apply right away to your job search, or even if not immediately, definitely at that point where you are looking to actively start job searching. All right, so be prepared to take notes. Now, what I'm going to be covering, as mentioned before, is the three keys of a successful job search despite, and it's no accident I put despite in uppercase letters, despite market conditions. All right, so this session is not just for the current situation we're in with COVID-19 and the pandemic. What I'll be discussing is going to be applicable even after we leave this period of time, right? When we're in a more prosperous economy, whether it's an up market, a down market, recession, whatever the situation is. What I wanted to cover today is the fundamentals, right? The fundamentals means something that applies regardless of the situation, regardless of the job market, regardless of the market conditions. So as I'm going along, as mentioned, feel free to put any questions you have. I'll definitely get to the questions probably in the Q&A part, which is at the end of the session. I'm also going to be sharing with you some free resources you can take advantage of either through my social media or my website. So I'll speak about that briefly at the end, and then we'll get into the Q&A. All right, so the three components, and again, make sure you're taking notes, everyone. The three components to a successful job search. So obviously, there's so many different components to a job search, and I'm not gonna say that all you need is these three components. But these are the three components that if you have these in line, like if you have this figured out, and if you're really carrying and focusing on these three components, you'll be able to make the necessary pivots in all the other areas, because these are the three components, again, as I mentioned before, for a job search that are going to remain consistent, like in terms of the level of importance and in terms of what you need to be doing in relation to these various components. All right, so the three components I'm going to be covering is, number one, I'm going to be discussing focusing on the fundamentals. So focusing on the fundamentals, that part, I'm going to cover three fundamentals to every job search in relation to, kind of the building blocks, right? Number two component I'm going to be speaking about is assessing the marketplace. I'm going to be sharing some tips and advice in how you can assess the marketplace, what you need to be paying attention to, so you can get as make the most of your job search by making the most effective use of your time. And number three, I'm going to be speaking about how to, some ideas about how to proactively get in front of hiring teams. So again, most of you are students and new grads. The presentation is definitely geared towards students and new grads, but even if you're not a student or new grad, the information is still very much going to be relevant to you. All right, so hang in there. Definitely make sure you're taking notes and put any questions or comments or feedback you have in the comments. So I already mentioned this. My task, my goal at the end of the session, you will be able to know what three areas are going to get you through any job market conditions, assuming that you really put the time and effort into making sure these three components are done correctly and done well. I've already mentioned that, but it applies regardless of whether you're looking for paid employment. And for those of you watching who are looking for internships, co-ops, these exact same principles apply, okay? So I still want you to pay attention. This is not just for paid employment. It's not just for people who have already graduated. I get so many new graduates asking me about, their struggles in regards to getting internships and co-ops and all that stuff. So this exact same components still apply, even if that's your situation. So just keep that in mind. Now, number one, focusing on the fundamentals. Now, what do I mean by the fundamentals? Well, regardless of what the environment is, right? Whether, and again, right now we're in this COVID-19 pandemic situation. So even in the current situation, even when things change and things alter, things get better, we enter a period of prosperity. These three things you definitely have to make sure you're looking into in your as you're preparing for your job search, and you're really taking a look at what you need to be doing in order to do this successfully. All right. So number one is I'm going to cover some resume 101. I'm going to go over some resume tips, some things you need to keep in mind for your resume, which are extremely important. Number two thing is I'm going to cover is hiring motivation. So as someone who has worked as a recruiter, who's dealt with so many different hiring teams, I'm going to be sharing with you kind of an insider's look on some aspects you need to always consider in terms of organizations and their hiring motivation, because that'll allow you to better approach them. All right, and better approach your conversations as well, which brings me to the third part I'm going to be speaking about in relation to this number one fundamental, and that is the two components to a successful interview. I'm going to be talking about the two parts you should mentally, or even before you're going in, when you're preparing for the interview, you should know that there are two components to the interview, and you need to be hitting both of these components to get a successful end result. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to 100% get every single interview is going to result in an offer letter. I'm not saying that, but this is going to put you in a stronger position to really impress the hiring team if you understand these two components to the interview. All right, so be prepared for that as well. I'm going to talk about that. So let's get right into the resume, right, or the CV. So depending on your location in the world, you might call it a CV as well, or over here in North America, in Toronto, we call it a resume. So what is the function of your resume? And if you're commenting, feel free to share in the comments what your thoughts are. What do you think the function of the resume is? I definitely love to hear your thoughts. So feel free to share that in the comments, everyone. Let me know what you think. What is the function of your resume? Look, it's a marketing tool, right? That's the primary function of your resume. And I want you to start looking at your resume in exactly this way. It is a marketing tool. And it's just one of the tools you need to be using as part of your quote unquote arsenal, right? It's not the end all be all. It's not the whole success of your job search is not dependent on your resume. It's definitely a very important document, but it's not the only thing that you need to be depending on. So I want you to start looking at it as a marketing tool, as almost like a brochure, right? So this is gets me to what I wanted to mention next is you should never depend solely on your resume. So the resume, by definition, and this is my definition of what the resume's purpose is, and it's on there in that bullet point. The resume's purpose is to elicit, right? Is to gain initial interest in learning more about you. So that's why it goes very much in line with the kind of the function of a marketing brochure or a flyer or some like almost like an advertisement or something of that sorts, because it's to get someone, the recipient, the person reading the resume, to get them interested in wanting to have a further conversation, right? Now, the reason why I wanted to stress on this and stress the importance of this is so many job seekers over the years I've noticed, when they reach out to me, it's like they're putting all their hopes and their dependencies on the resume itself. Dean, I have a fantastic resume. I invested in a resume writer. It's a spick and span resume. It looks great. It has everything. I have nothing to worry about anymore. I'm definitely going to get a job. Folks, if you're thinking that way, that is not the right attitude about your resume. All right. Now, again, I want to stress, I'm not saying the resume is not important. It's definitely important you have a good resume and it's well structured, it's well formatted and all that stuff. But you want to make sure you're not solely depending on just your resume. Because as you can see in that other bullet point, the final bullet point up there that I put is the selling part is still up to you, right? So just because you have a great resume, when you're at the interview, right, and they start asking you questions, you can't say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Hiring Manager or Mr. and Mrs. Recruiter, everything's on my resume. Just read over it. Let me know if it's okay, and let me know when you have the offer letter. No one's gonna do that, right? And that's because selling the resume, selling who you are, right? Selling. I need you to start thinking like a salesperson right now. You are selling you, right? The resume is not gonna do the selling on your behalf. It's there in front of the hiring manager. It's in front of the recruiter. And whatever you do, don't ever say it's on my resume, right? Because the recruiter, the hiring manager, they already have your resume in front of them. If all they had to do was just read over your resume, they would not call you for an interview and they would not give you a phone call. So the selling part, right? It's your responsibility to sell you, right? You have to sell the company on why you're the best candidate, why you're the top candidate, why you're a viable candidate, why you should be the one that they should consider for this position, and why they should consider you for the next interview in the process, the second, the third interview, how many number of interviews there are, and ultimately why they should be offering you as the candidate as the one that should get the offer letter. So the point here, everyone, yes, the resume is important, but no, you are not going to depend solely on the resume. The selling part, articulating, communicating your value, that's always up to you, right? And even the even if it's an extremely well-written resume, right? Let's say you invest like hundreds, maybe you invest thousands of dollars or your currency on getting a fantastic resume writer, which is great. If you want to do that, that's fine. And it's a fantastic resume, right? It's so fantastic. It ends up on the Guinness Book of Records. You win an Olympic gold medal for it. You win like some fashion magazine gives you like an award for it because it is such a good looking resume. Even if that's the case, right? And I know I'm kind of joking about it, but even if you have the best resume in the world, it's only going to get you one thing, right? It's only going to get you a phone call. That's all. The best resume in the world is only going to get you a phone call, an initial phone call of interest, right? Someone sees your resume, they're impressed by it. They're not going to offer you a job right away, at least in most cases. You're not going to get a job right away. What you are going to get is you're going to get an opportunity, right? And that opportunity is going to come in the form of maybe a response email where they're going to try to schedule a phone call, or they're going to give you a phone call right away. So that is the function of the resume. The function of the resume is to get you up until that point and to act as a point of reference for your interview conversation, right? Because the resume is all that the recruiting team or the hiring team has in front of them, that represents you, that they can refer to ask their questions and clarifications and all that stuff. So again, remember, if you're taking notes, you definitely want to write this down, everyone, right? Even the best resume in the world, the only thing it's going to get you is an opportunity, and that opportunity could be like an email wanting to schedule you for the pre-screen or the first interview, or they're going to call you right away, and that's what it's going to get you. But the selling part, going back to the previous bullet point, the selling part on the phone, on the pre-screen, on the first interview, that's still entirely 100% up to you. The resume is not going to do that on your behalf. As a recruiter, in my 8+ years working in recruitment, I've never had a hiring team say, "Yeah, Dean, we want to hire this candidate because they have a great resume." No, I've never heard that, everyone, right? What I have heard is, "Hey, Dean, great candidate. They really, we had a great conversation. They really sold us and told us about, why they would be a great candidate for the position, and we definitely feel confident that they can help us with this project and blah 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 and all that stuff. And we definitely want to present an offer letter." That I have heard, but it's never based on solely on the resume. The resume will get you the attention, gets you the opportunity, gets you the first phone call, gets you the pre-screen, gets you the first interview, but that's it. The selling part is entirely up to you, all right? So always remember this, and you need to make sure that you're keeping this in mind in relation to your resume or your CV. So using your resume at your interviews, what do you need to be doing? Okay, so you're like, okay, Dean, so you're saying, don't depend on the resume, but you're saying the resume is still important. Like, what do you want me to do? So the resume, you need to use it as a tool to assist you in selling yourself on selling others on your value, right? Again, we're not depending on the resume. Yes, the resume is important. Yes, good looking resume is important. Yes, good formatting, descriptive and all that stuff. Yes, it's important. But you need to use it at your interview as a tool of reference, right? So you can refer to it. You can, and you're ready to speak about all of your projects, your experiences, and everything you bring to the table, right? And this definitely, you being a student and a new grad, yes, your academic experience does count, right? So you have to use the resume as a tool that you can use to show the employer, explain to the employer, and refer to things mentioned on the resume that you need to expand on, and further elaborate, further explain, further expand on, and communicate that to the hiring manager, the interviewer, or the recruiter. Now, the resume itself, I'm going to go over some tips regarding the resume, all right? Because as a recruiter, I've probably, I don't know how many resumes I've reviewed, but I don't think it would be an understatement for me to say maybe tens of thousands of resumes over the years, right? So this part you definitely want to take notes, because I'm going to be sharing with you one of the biggest mistakes so many people make on their resumes, and that is having an extremely tasks, duties, and responsibilities focused resume. Now, what I mean by that is, so many people, the mistake they make on their resumes, they only talk about what they did, right? I did this, I accomplished this, I did XYZ, programmed in Java, C#, blah blah blah, performed XYZ accounting tasks, duties, responsibilities, whatever. Everyone's focusing on what they did, which is very important. Don't get me wrong, this is important to explain what you did. But the missing component from so many resumes, and I'm going to get to that shortly, results in most people's resumes looking almost exactly like a job description, right? Nothing stands out. The experience doesn't really jump out at the recruiter or the hiring manager or the interviewer. So the missing component, as I've kind of already listed on that bullet point, is end results, outcomes, end results, metrics, return on investment, right? ROI, return on investment. This is the missing component so many people have on their resumes. Now, those of you who are new, obviously most of you watching are students and new graduates, and you might be thinking, "Oh, Dean, well, I don't have any professional experience." So hang in there. I'm going to get to that point shortly, right? But bear with me right now. I need you to understand this part. You need to be connecting what you did, the tasks, duties, responsibilities. You need to connect it with some kind of a problem, and connect that, those two with an actual outcome, a business outcome, end result, some achievement, some accomplishment, and you ideally you want to quantify it. You want to attach a number to it. Now, the reason why this is important is, and you need to pay good attention to what I'm about to say, everyone, right? Because this is extremely important for everyone to understand. Organizations and businesses do not hire you for what you can do. right? They do not hire you simply for performing a task, duty, or responsibility. No organization says, yeah, we want to hire you because we want you to perform this task. No, that is just one component. That's just one part of it. The other component, so many people don't think about, is the organization, the business. They're hiring people to perform a task, duty, and responsibility in order to achieve an outcome or end result, right? Some business outcome or end result. So they're not hiring. So if you're a software developer, they're not hiring you just to type a whole bunch of random code and create some application. They definitely want you to do that, but they're doing that in order to achieve some kind of an outcome, end result, or something like that. So if you're a software developer, they're not hiring you just to code in Java or whatever language it is, right? They want you to come in, code the application in Java, so they can provide an update or a new release to their end customer, which will result in more revenue or sustained revenue, right? So this is the missing component so many people have when they're describing their experience, right? So you need to make sure if you have some co-op experience or internship experience, or if you're currently in an internship or a co-op, you need to have a conversation with your manager, and right, if you haven't done so already, and have a conversation and find out from them, what is the impact of what I'm doing, what is the end result, what are the outcomes I'm helping you achieve right now. And you need to take note of that, and you need to highlight that on your resume, on your CV, for your bullet points, for every task, duty, and responsibility you have been asked to do. Because every task, duty, and responsibility is not some random thing, everyone, right? Organizations are not just dishing out just telling people to do stuff just because it's fun to watch, right? It's because there is some end result that they want to achieve, and they need someone with your skills, your knowledge, your expertise, right? And new grad students, don't tell me that, oh, I don't have experience, Dean, I don't have any experience, blah blah. No, you have academic knowledge and experience, which they need in order to achieve some kind of an end result, right? So if you're an accounting student, don't give me that excuse, oh, Dean, I don't have experience, I don't have professional experience, blah blah. No, but you have taken courses, you have completed projects, right? And even your academic projects, everyone, even the academic project, right? Usually the professor or the course, right, or the TA, whoever it is, they usually provide you with some context for the project, right? They say, okay, you need to do this, you need to do this in the project in order to achieve this, right? Whatever the end result was. So it's the same thing. Even if you're a student, new graduate, this is how you need to be describing your academic projects on your resume, on your CV. Connect what you did, what the project was. Okay, the professor wanted us to create a calculator application, right? And they wanted us to create the calculator application so that various calculations can be conducted by potential whatever students, construction workers, or whoever it is you created the calculator for, right? There has to be an end result and outcome, right? And even in your academic projects, there is some kind of an outcome or end result that the professor or the TA or whoever is teaching wanted you to achieve and wanted you to demonstrate, right? There is some kind of an outcome. So don't give me the excuse, oh, Dean, I only have academic experience. No, that still counts. This is still counting, right? But you have to make that connection, right? What you did, you got to connect it with an end result outcome, because that's what businesses and organizations are going to look for. They're not going to hire you, everyone, right? If you're a student, new graduate, they're not going to hire you because they feel sorry for you and oh yeah, I used to be a student, and this person's a student, I'm going to hire them. Hey, guess what? There are thousands of students, everyone, all right? So you need to take a very strategic approach in your conversations, in your interviews. Connect every single task or duty and responsibilities that you have the ability to perform. Always connect that with an outcome that you can help the organization achieve. All right. So if you say, yeah, I can do XYZ, then you need to further expand and say, I can perform XYZ in order to help you and your organization achieve, ABC, whatever ABC is, the end result, the outcome. So this is the missing component so many people have on their resume. So students, new graduates, if you're not a student, new graduate, you're a junior level person, you're an entry level person, even if you're a C level executive right now, I would give this exact same advice to everyone. Connect what you did, the tasks, duties, responsibilities on your resume, connected with an outcome and end result. You have to make that connection. That's how your resume is going to stand out. And that's how your resume is not going to look like, it's not going to look identical to a job description. This is why so many people's resumes don't stand out. Everyone talks about, hey, Dean, how do I beat the ATS? How do I, trick the ATS? And, how do I do the job scan? How do I do, the scorecard, ATS scorecard, whatever that is? Here's the thing nobody talks about, right? And this is coming from a recruiter, someone who has used ATS platforms on a daily basis. Every single resume, everyone, okay, pay really good attention to this. Every single resume submitted to an ATS makes it onto the ATS. There's nothing to beat, right? So anyone talking about beating the ATS, how do you beat the ATS? That phrase does not make any sense, because every resume submitted to an ATS does make it to the ATS. It's sitting there. It's inside the system. It's sitting there, right? What no one talks about is the second component. How do you get the attention of someone who is reading over your resume and reviewing your resume? That's the important thing everyone needs to focus on. Is problem number 2, which is, hey, it's on the ATS, but how do I make it a compelling resume? How do I make it attractive so people want to actually look at it and give me a phone call? Well, this is how you do it, everyone, right? You got to highlight and make that connection between tasks, duties, responsibilities, problem solved, business outcomes, end results, ROI, return on investment, and all that stuff. Now, something real quick, I mentioned this before. If at all possible, now you won't always be able to do this, but as much as possible, when you're describing the outcomes, the end results and all that stuff, you want to quantify it as much as possible, if at all possible. You might not be able to do this for every single bullet point, but as much as possible, you want to see if you can quantify, right? When you attach a number to something, it's more real, it adds more credibility to it as well, right? So instead of me saying, okay, so I accomplished task XYZ, which resulted in increased efficiency, yeah, I can say that, or I can say perform task XYZ, resulting in 25% increase in efficiency in overall accounting process, or something like that. So when you can quantify it, that's always ideal. Now, if you can quantify, you don't have a number, and you definitely don't want to be making up random numbers. But if you're not able to do that, you at least need to talk about the end result, right? So in that same example, I might say, perform task XYZ, resulting in increased efficiency for the end client, and resulting in greater customer satisfaction. So I might phrase it like that if I can quantify it, right? So, but that being said, as much as possible, if you can attach a number to it and make sure it's a credible, not a made up random number, then you want to do that as much as possible. Very important. So again, how you write down each bullet point, make sure you pay attention to this, and make sure you do this on your resume, even if you're a student or new grad. Now, speaking a bit more about students and new graduates, right? You need to leverage your academic projects, right? Again, there's no excuse. Don't say, oh, Dean, I'm a new, again, I already said this. Don't say, Dean, oh, I don't have a professional experience. You have your academic projects. Your academic projects do not go to waste, everyone, right? That definitely counts. And when you're applying for an entry-level position or a new graduate position, they're not going to expect you to have professional work experience. So you need to leverage your academic projects. Pretend your academic projects, think of them like almost like they are actual professional work experience, because you probably worked on the project. You actually used your skills to solve whatever problem was there. You used your skills to create the outcome desired for the project. If you were working in a team, that's teamwork experience right there. That still does count, right? So you need to be thinking about thinking about these things in that way, right? Don't think, oh yeah, I don't have professional work experience. This still counts. Now, another thing though, okay, now given the fact that yes, you do have the academic projects, you definitely want to leverage that, you definitely want to use that, for sure you want to highlight those on your resume. And by the way, before I get to the next point I was going to speak about is, you need to highlight your academic projects on your resume. This is another thing I've seen so many students and new grads do, is they don't list their academic projects. So if you don't have work experience, you don't have professional work experience, you definitely have to instead list your academic work experience, right? So instead, sorry, not academic work experience, but academic projects. So instead of listing that section as professional work experience, because you don't want to lie about that, right? Don't lie or misrepresent yourself. Instead of that, just put a section that says academic projects or something of that sort, and list out the most relevant academic projects you worked on. And you want to list those, you want to highlight those, and in the format I discussed in that previous bullet point, you got to connect what you did with some kind of an outcome, right? What you did, what problem it was solving, and the outcome and end result. You have to make sure you're doing that. Now, if you don't have, okay, so you've covered your academic projects. That's great. That's good. Now, at the same time, I want to encourage all of the students, new grads, you should be building your own portfolio of work. Okay, so outside of school, outside of college, university, whatever your situation is, if at all possible, right? This could depend on your skill and your field, but if possible, you need to start building your own portfolio of work, right? Start, if you're a software developer, start coding your own applications. Put it up on GitHub. Create your own applications. This is much more powerful, right? So that way you're not just saying, yeah, these are my academic projects, this is what I did, and this is what I accomplished. You can also say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Hiring Manager, I also have my own applications I've been creating. It's actually on my GitHub account. If you don't mind, can you please go to the website? I can show you right now, and you can take a look at my work while we're here at the interview, right? You can, at least you're in a position to do that as well, right? So start building your own portfolio. Now, other thing is, of course, leverage internships. Internships do count as professional work experience. Now, in the brackets, you probably want to mention it's an internship, but you definitely want to mention your internships on your resume. Volunteer experience as well. You definitely want to utilize volunteer experience. In fact, I encourage everyone to start volunteering if you haven't already. Now, quick note about volunteering. If you want to be strategic about volunteering definitely, it's about giving back to the community, giving back to society, volunteering your time. Yes, you definitely want to go in with that mind state. That's very honorable. It's good to do that. But also, let's see how you can be strategic about this as well, right? So as much as possible, the skills you want to volunteer should be relevant skills to your ideal profession and your career. All right. So there's so many places you can volunteer, right? Your some charity you support, your temple, your mosque, your church, whatever institution you're a part of. You can volunteer, right? But instead of volunteering on non skill set related stuff, volunteer your skills, your knowledge, right? So if you're an accountant, you're an accounting student, approach your temple, your mosque, your church, and say, hey, I'd love to volunteer my accounting skills and help you out with maybe some of the accounting stuff at the temple, mosque, or church or something, right? Same thing if you're a software developer. Maybe you can create. You're a student, currently completing your computer science degree or something. Volunteer your comp sci skills, right? Your programming skills. Volunteer the relevant skills, because again, then guess what? Not only are you showing you're a contributing member of society, not only are you showing that yes, you're giving back to society and giving back to the community, but you're also showing that you have used relevant skills, right? So it's two birds with one stone. So if you're going to volunteer your skills, your core skills. That's what you can volunteer and give. It's an opportunity for you to build those skills. It's an opportunity for you to show and tell the employer, yeah, I volunteered, and I volunteered relevant skills. I volunteered my accounting knowledge. I volunteered my software development knowledge. I volunteered my construction knowledge, whatever your field is. So yes, good to volunteer, but be strategic about volunteering. Volunteer your the skills that are going to get you the career that you want, because then it's more powerful at the interview. So imagine you do all this stuff, right? You leverage your academic projects, right? You showcase that stuff. You also build your own portfolio. You're saying, yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Hiring Manager, I've also building my own portfolio. Take a look at this. Here's what I've done by myself outside of school, outside of university, college. I've also done some volunteer experience as well. I actually volunteered at my local temple. They needed help with their accounting, so I volunteered and provided them with some accounting help. I helped them with their books, blah blah blah. This is what I did, and this is what I did. And you can now guess what? You can now provide the temple as your reference. Now they can actually provide a reference and say, yeah, they contributed their skills and did this for our temple or a mosque or church, whatever the situation is, or some nonprofit, right? Whatever. It doesn't have to be like a religious institution. I'm just giving you an example. But any nonprofit for that matter, right? Any charity, any organization you support, right? So be strategic about it as well, right? So this is very important. So you can build a very attractive resume that you can present to the organizations you want to work for. Now, quick note: your resume, as much as I've been saying, oh, don't depend on your resume and this and that, you should see at this point that it still doesn't mean that the resume is not important. It's still important to have a good resume, and a well-written resume, an organized resume, and make sure it's checked for spelling and grammar mistakes as well. Okay, spell check. No excuses, folks, right? You have to run the spell check and the grammar check, right? Have your friends read it, have a family member read it, have your, professors read it if they do that, your TA read it if you have a TA, and run the spell check within the application as well. And you do another final check as well. You got to make sure it's spick and span, no spelling, no grammar mistakes, right? Some people are very, very picky about this, so I don't want you to, lose out on opportunities just because of that. The worst thing that can happen is you say that you're detail oriented, but meanwhile you have spelling and grammar mistakes. I mean, there's a contradiction there, right? So make sure you're doing this. Now, quick note about the resume, and if you're trying to do fancy stuff, you're doing the charts, bar graphs, and tables, and fancy graphics and funky fonts and all that stuff. This might affect the ability of the ATS to parse your resume onto the system, right? So what happens basically, long story short, when you submit a resume onto an ATS system, In order to prevent the recruiter from having to download each and every single resume so they can actually view it, the ATS does what's called parsing, right? Parsing, which basically means it converts it into a readable format that the recruiter can basically read within the ATS itself. Now, guess what? If you put fancy charts and bar charts, pie graphs, and graphics, and different fonts that the ATS can recognize, guess what? It might not be able to parse it correctly. It might show up jumbled up and fumbled up and scrambled, or it might just be a whole bunch of random characters and stuff like that. So this is why you want to make it as simple and structured as possible. Avoid fancy formatting. Avoid fonts that might not be recognized by outside of those common well-known fonts. Avoid putting information on graphics, right? Because graphics are not searchable. So if you create a graphic that lists your skills, accounting, software development, Microsoft Office, blah blah, whatever. If it's a graphic, guess what? When the recruiter is doing a keyword search, it's not going to pick up on that because it's a graphic file, right? It's not going to recognize it. So make sure as much as possible, it looks nice, it's ordered, it's organized, and all that. But make sure that nothing too fancy or graphics and all that stuff. So just make sure it's very, very easy for the ATS to recognize it and make it a readable format. And as much as possible, to preserve the formatting of your resume, always convert it into a PDF. So because that preserves the formatting, and just make sure you do that. And finally, you need to be the expert on your resume. Every single bullet point mentioned on your resume, folks, is a potential question from the hiring team. Something that they might potentially ask you about, something they might potentially want you to elaborate on. And if someone points to any bullet point on your resume, you should be able to expand on it, further explain things, and further get into what exactly you're trying to you did in you showcase in that bullet point, right? You need to be the expert on your resume. So before your interviews, before you even submit the resume, you have to make sure you are confident to further explain, elaborate each and every bullet point on your resume, right? Because they might ask you to go into more detail. So this is where all of you folks there that are like, oh yeah, everything's on my resume, it's not going to work out. You have to be the expert on your resume. Remember, it's like a like I said, it's like a marketing brochure. It's just a tool. It's there as a reference tool, right? But you have to be the expert. You have to be able to explain everything. All right, now what every position has in common. Now we're getting into interviews, right? We're getting into the interview part of the thing. And if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to put it in the comments. But what does every position have in common? Feel free to let me know in the comments. Well, what every position has in common, every hiring need, what it has in common is a problem which needs to get solved by the person hired for the position. And guess what? You are that person, right? So this goes back to what I mentioned in the resume part, right? They're not just hiring you for performing tasks, duties, responsibilities. They're hiring you to perform and achieve, perform those tasks in order to achieve an outcome. And in most cases, that outcome is to resolve some kind of a problem or achieve some kind of an end result, right? So behind every position, whatever position it is, okay, whatever your field is, this fundamental remains the same, the exact same, regardless of the market conditions. There is, behind every hiring position, every hiring need, behind every hiring need is a problem that needs to get solved, right? So the reason why this is important is part of your task at the interview, or part of your task when you're asking your questions from the hiring manager, from the hiring team, you need to figure out what that end result they want you to achieve is, right? And it doesn't matter if you're a student or a new grad, right? Some of you watching might be like, yeah, but Dean, I'm applying for entry-level positions. There's no problems, nothing like that. No, there is a problem. They want you to perform something. They want you to do something for them, right? With your knowledge as a student or new grad, in order to achieve an outcome, right? And again, that outcome is usually attached to resolving some problem, some pain points they're experiencing, or something of that sort. So this is consistent regardless of the market environment, right? So if you tell me, Dean, it's a recession out there, if you tell me, Dean, it's a great market out there, it's a good market, whatever the market conditions, everyone, this part of the process is always the same. And this is which is very important that all of you even take notes and write this down. Regardless of the market conditions, whether we have a pandemic going on, we have a recession going on, we have an up market going on, everyone's happy, throwing balloons in the air and everything, whatever it is, behind every position, this remains consistent regardless of market conditions. There is a problem the organization wants to solve, right? So always remember this. So what every recruiter, what every hiring manager, everyone who is sitting across from you, whether it's a video interview or it's a physical interview, you're there in the office, you're sitting across them on the desk, they're only asking themselves one thing, and they might not verbally ask you this, but what every interviewer is wondering is, hey, how will this person sitting across from us, how will they help us solve the problem associated with this role? And if you're not, taking the steps to show them how you can help them solve whatever problem that is, everyone, this is where they're going to feel hesitant in moving you further along the process, and they're not going to be able to see how you might be a great candidate for the position. So always remember this, extremely important, and something you always need to remember, right? This is the unspoken question every interviewer is wondering, and as you're going through the interview, you have to make sure you're asking yourself, hey, have I answered this question for them, even though they're not going to verbally ask me this? Have I communicated this? Have I shown them why I'm the person that's going to help them with the problem associated with this role, or whatever outcome or end result they want to achieve? Now, in order to effectively sell yourself, you need to understand the problem or the pain point first and foremost, right? I'm going to show you an analogy I like to use shortly. It's called my water bottle analogy, on why this is so important, right? Because if you're not understanding the problem throughout the interview, you're not understanding their motivation for why they want to hire, then your pitch, your sales pitch, right, a quote unquote sales pitch, because remember, we're going to use that kind of a metaphor. If you're not understanding the problem, then what you're telling them might not be relevant, right? It's not going to be relevant, because just because you might have a whole bunch of great accomplishments and great projects, you won such and such awards, which is great, which is good. It's good to be proud of that stuff. But if it's not relevant to the hiring team, then it's not going to get their attention, right? So this is why throughout the interview, you need to be taking steps at your end to understand why they're hiring and what problem is, the details about the project, what do they want you to achieve, right, within a certain time period of time. If you're and as you strengthen your understanding of why they're looking to hire, and more details about that project, that's when you're going to be able to highlight the most relevant knowledge that you have. All right. So for example, let's say you're a software developer, and in school you worked on different types of projects, right? You worked on some cloud related project, academic project. You worked on a calculator project. You worked on creating like some kind of a database a thing or whatnot, right? Now if you go into the interview, you start talking about all of those projects, and the company you're interviewing with, they're a cloud company, right? They're an IT cloud-based company, and you're talking about all your projects. Hey, that's still good, but what you want to do is the most effective thing for you to do is actually focus on that project you did that was cloud related, right? You were coding some cloud solution or something of that sort. That's the one you want to focus on. So it's all about relevance. What I'm trying to explain to you is it's about relevance. The interview is not just about you, right? It's not about you going in there and just talking about a whole bunch of stuff. It's about the intersection between what you bring to the table and what the organization is looking for in order to utilize your skills to solve some kind of a problem. That's what the interview is about. So always remember that. If you're taking notes, you want to write that down. The interview is not about you. It's not about you going in there and talking about all your achievements. The interview is about the intersection between what you bring to the table and what the organization needs in order to work on this project or bring a resolution to whatever pain points they have going on. So a quick example, I like to use my water bottle analogy, right? So let's use this. I have this flavored water bottle here. It's one product, right? But how many different ways can I sell this product? Well, if you're a health conscious person, I'm probably going to focus on the nutritional aspects of it, right? So I might highlight, oh yeah, this is 0 calories, there's no cholesterol in this, it's healthy. That's how I'm going to sell this to you if you're health conscious. Now, let's say you're going on a camping trip, and your major concern is, Dean, I want to make sure it's a water bottle that's not too heavy. I can carry it in my backpack, and it's not going to be very nuisance to fit in and stuff like that. If that's the case, I'm going to focus on the size, right? The size of the bottle. I'm going to say, hey, well, it's a very small, compact size, not heavy at all. Even when it's full, it's less than 1 pound. That's how I'm going to sell it. Now, if you're someone who's brand conscious, you're like, Dean, I only purchase credible brands. I only purchase well-known brands. That's the only kind of water I buy. Then I'm going to stress the brand. I'm going to talk about the brand. I'm going to be like, hey, this is a name brand. They've been in the water bottle industry for 50 years or something like that. That's what I'm going to focus on. So the point I'm trying to make here is, check that out, right? One product, many different sales pitches depending on the consumer's problem, what problem the consumer is looking to solve, right? So depending on what problem the consumer is going to solve, that is the aspect I'm going to highlight. Now, all those things I mentioned about this water bottle are true. Now, I could have talked about all of those things all at once, and whatever, then I might even lose the attention of some of the people, right? Because depending on whether or not it speaks to their pain point. But if I focus on the thing that's most important to them, right, the problem that they're looking to solve, right, like the person who's going backpacking on camping, they want something small they can fit into the backpack that's not heavy. Because I focused on that, then it keeps their attention. Like they see the relevance of the product. So my point here is always remember this, right? Before your interviews, remember my water bottle analogy. One product, different sales pitches, depending on what problem the consumer wants to solve. All right. So always remember this. Very important, right? You got to keep this in mind for your interviews. So this is why when you're going for interviews, right? Some of you might have experienced this. You got everything right. You memorize, how to talk about your projects. You speak about everything. Everything goes well. They're smiling. They seem to like you. But at the end, they're like, yeah, we decided to go with another candidate, or they don't respond to you. They ghost you. No feedback, nothing like that. This is probably what happened. It's because you maybe talked about everything, but you didn't speak about the relevant thing, right? So you got to figure out, first of all, what the relevant thing is, what their problem, what their pain points are. Then you want to deliver the most relevant skills, experience, knowledge you have, and you want to focus on that. So that's going to get and keep their attention. All right. So very important. So I've already mentioned this. How you present yourself at the interviews, this is the point I'm trying to make, is dependent on the pain points, the problem, and the project. So relevance. It's all about relevance, everyone, right? Leverage your academic projects, your internships, your co-ops, your volunteer experience. So just a quick reminder there, because most of you watching are students and new graduates. You have to leverage the academic projects, the internships, the co-ops, and the volunteer experience. So you're able to, and again, the relevant stuff, right? So again, let's not go into all of your academic projects from the beginning of time. You want to focus on the relevant stuff first and foremost. And then if needed, of course, you can talk about the other stuff, right? If you're proud of it, you want to talk about the other stuff, that's fine. But first and foremost, priority, VIP, priority number one is the relevant projects, relevant internships, relevant co-ops, relevant volunteer experience. Then you can go into the other stuff if needed. So your task at the interview, right? So now there's two components to the interview, and this is not necessarily a sequential order, right? Because depending on your part in the world, some parts of the world, it might be considered inappropriate for you to ask questions throughout the interview. Here in North America, it's fine. It's acceptable to ask questions back and forth even. But maybe you're in a part of the world where, it's very formal. You should only ask your questions, at the end of the interview. Hey, that's fine. But even then, there are two components to the interview, right? I wouldn't say I can use the word components, but also two parts to the interview, right? Basically, number one is the investigation part. Again, this is not necessarily sequential. Both of these two can be mixed up, right? But my point is, these are the two parts of the interview. Investigations, so this is where you're learning more about the project and the outcomes and all that stuff. Why is the organization looking to hire? What is the underlying key problem associated with this position? What is the level of urgency to hire for the position? What is the organization looking for in an ideal candidate for the position? So everyone, these are things, as you're going through the interview conversation, you need to be investigating, right? Think of yourself like a detective, right? You're Sherlock Holmes. You're trying to investigate. You got to figure these things out so that, again, remember what I said in the previous slide, so you can focus on the relevant stuff. Another analogy is doctor versus patient, right? So when we go to a doctor, when I go to the doctor doesn't say, hey, Dean, okay, come in, have a seat, and blah, blah, blah. And then they write up a prescription and say, okay, here, Dean, here's the prescription, take 2 and call me in the morning. No, that doesn't happen, right? Because the doctor has to understand what I'm going through, right? So the doctor might say, hey, Dean, all right, so have a seat. Okay, so what's been happening? Okay, great. Now what happened? When did you start feeling that way? When did this start happening? Let me check your temperature. Let me, he puts that thing in the ear and stuff like that. They take the hammer and, hit your knee with it. That's never a lot of fun, but they're analyzing, right? The doctor's trying to analyze what the problem is before they get to the prescription. Now, after doing that, then the doctor says, okay, so, Dean, this is the analysis. So this is probably what's happening, right? So I'm going to prescribe to you, blah, blah, blah. This is the prescription here. Take this and let me know how it goes and, call me in the morning or whatever, right? But the point here is the doctor has to analyze before providing a prescription, right? So you need to be thinking the same way at your interviews, right? So a lot of you, you're going right into saying, oh, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Yeah, still good. It's good you want to do that. But you need to understand the motivation, the problem, the pain points, the project. And as you're going along the interview, as you're learning more about these things, that's how you're going to make pivots, adjustments, and you're going to highlight the most relevant stuff, right? So you as a student, new grad, you might be talking about all your academic projects. And in the interview conversation, maybe the interviewer is going to say, hey, well, we need someone for this position because it's for a client of ours who's in the healthcare industry, and they need someone to perform XYZ on this. So then when you hear that, then you should make a pivot, right? So then you should say, oh, okay. So actually, Mr. Mrs. Hiring Manager, I just wanted to also highlight, when I was in school, I actually completed like a health-related academic project. May I provide you more details and talk a bit more about that, because I think that would be very, very relevant for this position, given it's a healthcare client, right? So then the interviewer is going to be like, okay, yeah, that's something relevant. Yeah, for sure. Tell me more about that project. So you have to make adjustments and pivots throughout the conversation, everyone, right? And you have to pay attention to what their problem, their project, and their pain points are. Now, knowing that, that's when you can make those adjustments and pivots, right? Then you can sell them on why you're the ideal candidate based on what they're looking for in someone to solve the problem. You can highlight the most relevant, academic projects, internships, co-ops, et cetera, because now you're showing yourself as someone relevant, right? That they want to consider for the position. And you can also show them the potential ROI that you can get, that you can get them by them investing in you and hiring you and taking you on for this project. So basically what I'm trying to say here is the interview is not just about you going in there and just talking about everything. Yeah, you want to talk about yourself. You want to be prepared to talk about yourself and all that stuff. Very important for sure. But what you also want to make sure that you're doing is you want to make sure that you're actually taking the time to understand them, their situation, their project, their pain points, and all that stuff. And having that understanding throughout the conversation, you're going to know, okay, maybe I should talk about this more. Maybe I should talk about this more. Maybe I should spend less time talking about this project. Maybe I should spend more time talking about this project. Hey, maybe I should mention also this volunteer experience, which is very, very relevant for them given their situation. Whatever, like you got to make these adjustments. It's a strategic conversation, everyone, right? Always remember this. Now, other thing is assessing the marketplace. You got to make sure you're assessing the marketplace. That's another thing that's going to remain consistent throughout your job search. Again, regardless of the market conditions. Right now, how do you assess the marketplace? Well, look, pandemic or not, there's going to be certain industries doing well. There's going to be other industries not doing so well. So you have to do your research, right? Either watching the news, doing, searching some credible websites, for your industry that give market knowledge and trends and news and all that stuff. You need to know where the good stuff is and where the not so good stuff is, right? So you got to know which industries are doing well and focus your search there. So some things to consider is, where is the money and where is the investment flowing, right? Where are consumers spending their money? Where are businesses spending their money? Because if they're spending their money in certain industries, certain products, certain solutions and services, chances are those industries are thriving. They're doing well because there's a demand for their products, services, and solutions. So that is where you want to focus your job search, because that's where the opportunities are going to be. Because what happens when a business experiences increase in demand for their products, services, and solutions? Well, they're going to hire various people with various skills to come on and help them keep up with this demand. Maybe create new products, create new solutions to keep up with the demand. They're going to need people with various skills, including new graduates and students. So my point here is, you have to figure out, hey, what industries are hot right now? What industries are doing well? What industries are benefiting in the midst of this situation with the pandemic? That's where you want to focus your job search. That's where the opportunities are going to be. So, and even when you're outside of the pandemic, the same principle is the same, everyone, right? You have to always, constantly, consistently assess the marketplace and find out, where's the action? Where's all the action? Where's everyone going? Where are people investing their money? Those are the industries where the opportunities are going to be. And those are the industries you have to, make connections and network with people as a student, as a new graduate to uncover these opportunities as well, right? And also not only uncover, but also that's where all the job opportunities, like, check out their career pages and stuff like that. So again, identify those industries that are experiencing increases in demand for their products, services, and solutions, right? And that's where the opportunities are going to be. Now, some examples of this here in North America, and this might be different depending on your location, depending on your city. even within North America, right? Depending on what runs your local economy, right? So here in Toronto, I'm based out of Toronto, Canada. These are some really hot sectors that are really doing well right now, despite the pandemic, right? Tech is doing well, e-learning, e-commerce, logistics, healthcare, cybersecurity, infrastructure, real estate. These are some areas that are doing pretty well, like despite the fact that there's a pandemic going on. Now, other industries are not doing so well, but let's look at the positive. Let's look at where the action is. So these are some industries doing really, really well right now. So this is what you had to pay attention to as a student, as a new graduate. You're taking a look at the job market. These are the types of industries you need to look at. Now, this is the example for my location, my local city. So your city might be different. So you had to research, okay, in my city, what are the major industries my city is dependent on, right? And which of those industries are doing really well right now? Maybe in your city, it's a manufacturing city, right? Manufacturing is a hot sector. Maybe that's a good industry there. Maybe your city, there's a lot of healthcare related solution providers or something, right? So that might be where you want to look at. So examine your local city, country, location, whatever it is, and then assess, hey, what sectors are doing well, and those are the sectors you want to actually go after for the job opportunities. And also don't forget, right? Other bullet point there. Don't forget industries supporting those industries doing well. Quick example: when the pandemic hit, e-commerce the demand just went up, right? Because why? Everyone's some places or most places are in a lockdown. People are working from home. People don't want to go out and buy stuff. So they started ordering on Amazon, right? So Amazon and other e-commerce companies. Now, what happens? There's a huge demand for e-commerce products. Guess what? This increases demands for industries supporting that industry, right? Example of this is logistics. Why? Because now e-commerce demand has gone up. People are ordering stuff more. But guess what? This means that there's more demand for needing to deliver this high demand of new orders, right? So as a result of e-commerce increasing in demand and doing really well, as a byproduct of that, logistics is suddenly now also a really hot industry, right? It's gone up even more. And there's much higher demand for logistics, right? So in that space, that's another hot industry. So don't just look at the surface level. Don't just look at industries that are visibly doing well. Also examine, okay, so this industry is doing well. What are some industries supporting this industry? Because those industries are those secondary industries, I call them. They're going to need good people as well. They're going to need people maybe with your skills, your knowledge, your expertise and stuff like that. So don't just look at the surface level stuff. Dig a little deeper. Look at what other industries are benefiting from it as well. Now the opposite is obviously true for industries not doing well, right? So here in Toronto, travel industry, airline industry, retail, some parts of retail for sure, they got hit really bad. So if I was a job seeker, I would not focus a lot of time on those industries, even if I might like those industries. Doesn't matter. So whatever the market conditions, everyone, you have to focus your attention on those parts of the market doing really well, and don't waste your time on industries that you like but might not be doing well right now. Just it's more effective use of your time. Always remember this. And yeah, research. Bottom line here is you got to be researching. What's the current market conditions? What industries is my city dependent on, or whatever city you're interested in? And of those industries, which ones are doing well right now? And those are the areas. Those are the ones you want to go after. You want to research their careers pages. You want to network with people there, and you want to uncover opportunities in those areas. So go where the gold is. Go where the action is. That's the point here. And always remember the previous slide, right? What does every position have in common, right? Identify the industry problems. What problems is this industry going through right now? And then show them how your knowledge as a student, what you learned in school, you can leverage that to help their industry or their company or whatever it is. Now, number 3, and this is the final component, which, by the way, doesn't change regardless of market conditions, right? Proactively getting in front of hiring teams. So regardless of market conditions, you got to take a very proactive role in identifying what channels you can use. So how many channels are you utilizing, everyone, right? Feel free to share in the comments. So I'm going to share some channels that you can utilize right now. Some of these might be more relevant to like North America, but even look at whatever might be relevant to your local market and local city and wherever you're located. LinkedIn Jobs, right? LinkedIn Jobs, definitely something very, very popular over here. I'm pretty sure other parts of the world is the same as well. But you want to look for job opportunities on LinkedIn Jobs, right? Another popular websites over here in North America are Monster, Indeed, Dice. You want to look for job opportunities over there. You want to also get in touch with staffing agencies, right? Staffing agencies might have junior or entry level positions that they might want to be looking for people, and staffing agencies might be aware of opportunities that you might not be aware of, or the rest of us might not be aware of. And I know that because having worked in staffing agencies myself. So these are some other multiple channels. Networking, that's another channel you want to use. Are you attending industry events for your field, for your industry? Are you attending meetups? Right now it's probably virtual meetups, but are you attending those? Are you connecting? Are you meeting new people? Now, everyone, networking does not mean you meet people and say, hey, can you help me? Can you refer me for jobs? I'm looking for jobs. No, that's not networking, right? No, nobody owes you anything, folks. All right, don't just reach out to people and expect them to help you when you have not provided anything of value to them. Build the relationship first, right? Get to know them. Talk about industry stuff. Talk about your field. Offer them help. This is where you might be able to get a volunteer opportunity, right? As a student or new graduate. Networking is about building the relationship, right? So don't go right into, yeah, I'm a new graduate, I'm looking for work, can you help me? Thousands of graduates are doing that, folks. You're not going to stand out. So focus on the networking, focus on building the relationship, and see how you can be value to them, offer value to them before you go and actually ask them for a referral, or for them to refer you for a position or introduce you to someone. Scholarship track, this right here is a great platform, a great group for you to start your networking, right? Because some of you might get into getting jobs sometime soon, and maybe you might be able to help your other friends here on scholarship track, right? So all of you should be networking with each other. So actually in the comments, all of you should be sharing maybe your LinkedIn profile, right? Introduce yourself. Hey, my name is so and so. I'm a new graduate. I'm a student. Blah blah blah. Would love to connect with new people. Here's my LinkedIn profile, whatever. Or maybe scholarship track has its own other events that you can attend as well, right? So these are all other channels and networking opportunities as well, because you might meet people that who might need you, who might be interested in interviewing you for some position they have at their company. So this is very important. You got to make use of multiple channels, right? And scholarship track is definitely one of them. Also, building your professional brand on LinkedIn and other social media. So you're a student, right? You're completing academic projects right now. Are you sharing? Are you posting? What you're doing in your academic projects on LinkedIn? Like, that's what you need to be doing, right? At least let people know about it. At least then people know what you're doing, things that you're up to, and who knows, maybe hiring managers and hiring teams, they might see what projects you're working on that you're talking about on LinkedIn, and they might want to get in touch with you, right? They might offer you internships, co-ops, and stuff like that. So be proactive. Don't just sit on LinkedIn and only looking at job openings and stuff like that. Yeah, that's still important, but build your own brand as well. Start establishing yourself as an expert. Just because you're a student or new graduate doesn't mean you can't be an expert, right? Because you know things that other people might not know, right? So start posting about your projects, your academic projects, what you're working on right now. Hey, I'm currently working on this XYZ project. It's a great project. It's fantastic. We're using this and these tools. Hey, anybody has any tips for any other tools we can use? Simple as that. Nothing fancy, right? So you need to be active and build your own professional brand as well. Make direct contact to stand out from the competition, right? When you're applying for positions, you're probably up against a lot of competition, right? So be willing to make direct contact. Research the hiring managers, research potential hiring team, send them LinkedIn messages, send them emails. See how you can get in direct contact so you can actually build that relationship and have them consider you for the position. Measure the feedback, make pivots, make adjustments where necessary, right? Keep track of the 4 ratios. I call these the 4 ratios. Very important if you're taking notes, right? Because this is going to show you where the problem is. Keep track of the number of applications that you're sending out that's resulting in initial interest or pre-screens, right? That's the number 1 ratio you need to keep track of. Number 2 is number of pre-screens converting into first interviews. Third ratio is number of first interviews converting into second, third, or all the way up to final. And then the final ratio is number of final interviews converting into offers of employment. So real quick, let's say you've applied for 50 jobs, and none of them have converted into pre-screens or first interviews. So what does that tell you? That tells you that something's happening in the application stage. Maybe it's your resume, maybe it's the way you're applying, maybe it's the type of positions you're applying for, whatever. So at least now you know what part of the process the issue is. So now you can investigate. Now, what's the other thing? Another example is, let's say you're getting interviews and you got 10 interviews, and 0 of those interviews are converting into second interviews. So what does that tell you? That tells you something's happening in the interview. So you got to identify, you have to investigate, okay, what am I doing at the interview that's preventing these hiring teams from wanting to take me to the next step. So keep track of these 4 ratios, and you'll see the numbers always tell a story, and the numbers always tell you the truth. And you're going to know exactly which part of the process there's an issue occurring, so you can further investigate and find out what might be happening. All right. And by the way, again, just like the other 2 components, everyone, this is consistent regardless of the job market conditions, right? So this is the 3rd point. You have to proactively get yourself in front of hiring teams, and you have to use multiple channels, multiple means to do that. All right. So just some closing thoughts before we get into the Q&A, and then I'll share some free resources, but just some closing thoughts, right? Number 1 is stop thinking, oh, I'm a new student, I'm a new grad, I don't have experience, I don't have anything to offer. No, you have a lot to offer, everyone, right? Listen to what I'm saying. Just because you're a student, you're a new grad, you're a fresher, don't think you don't have anything to offer. You do. You have knowledge, you have expertise, you have certain skills that you've learned while you're in school. But the problem is a lot of you are not considering that as something of value. It is something of value. It's a lot of value, right? And you want to leverage that into your resume, into your conversations, into your interviews. You have to leverage that stuff, right? So just make sure you keep this in mind, and stop thinking, I'm a new graduate, I'm a student, I don't have anything to offer. Yes, you have a lot to offer, right? But it's your responsibility to convey that and communicate that confidently. Now, other closing thought is, while the pandemic definitely has changed certain things, right? And definitely, although there are, much more available talent, higher levels of competition, there are certain components that are consistent regardless of the job market environment. And those are the 3 components I shared with you today. So I hope you were able to take notes and keep track of those. But there are certain things that stay the same and remain consistent regardless of the market conditions. So always remember this. And now the difference, of course, is the approach you take and the degree of action, right? So if you're in a tough market condition, maybe you want to take more action. You want to apply for more positions, right? There might be some little differences here and there. But overall, the fundamentals remain the same, right? The fundamentals remain the same regardless of the market conditions. So remember, strengthen your understanding of the fundamentals, right, which I covered today. Always look at the actual marketplace, right? What industries is my city dependent on? Which of those industries are doing well? Those are the industries I want to focus on, right? And not just the primary industries. Remember, the secondary industries as well, industries supporting those industries, which are doing well. And then finally, of course, use multiple channels, multiple means to approach and get yourself in front of the right people, right? So always remember these things as part of your job search. And these always remain consistent, again, regardless of the market conditions or anything of that sort. So always remember this, extremely important. Now, just wanted to share some free resources for all of you folks. All right, so you can follow me, first of all. Like, the biggest resource, is to follow me on LinkedIn. I post regular well, not just LinkedIn, but also YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. I'm popular. I'm very active on those. I'm also on TikTok. I'm not doing too well on TikTok. I don't do any dances or anything like that, but I do share job search tips and advice. All right, so just look me up. I'm pretty much on any social media channel. I'm there. So I post regular job search tips and advice on videos, articles, a whole bunch of stuff on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Also, mark your calendar if you're available every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone. Which is the North American Eastern time zone. I go live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. I do a live stream. I talk about various job search tips, advice, and I also answer questions live from the audience, right? Just like this. So feel free to tune in. Mark your calendar every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone. I go live on those channels, right? Now, for people who are interested in IT or technology, I also do a series where I invite tech experts, IT experts from the industry, and we talk about industry stuff, right? Trends, challenges, career advice from senior mentors and stuff like that. So if you have an interest in IT technology, I do that series as well. Also, feel free to subscribe to my podcast. So my podcast is on Anchor FM, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other platforms. Just search for Conversations with a Tech Recruiter, and feel free to subscribe. And also, free resources. Again, the free resources and also all my social media links are on my website. So that's www.dkglobaltalent.com. So feel free to check it out, and a lot of free resources, and I definitely hope to be of value to you as you go about your job search. And I hope this session was also very helpful for you as well. For all my social media links, it's at this website, www.dkglobaltalent.com/connect. Again, that's www.dkglobaltalent.com/connect. Thank you, everyone. I hope everyone got a lot of great value out of this. But most importantly, you have to apply this to your job search. Okay, don't just take this, don't just get excited and stuff like that. I need you to take action. All right, so take action on everything I spoke about today. Put it into action. That's how you're gonna get feedback from the market, right? So perform the actions, perform the task, keep everything that I spoke about today in mind. And I wish everyone the best. And look, if you're a student, you're a new graduate, yeah, I know it might be a little challenging right now, but you know what, you're gonna make through it. You're gonna make it through. You got to take control over your job search. You're gonna make it through. And you need to stay positive and keep taking action. All right, so don't let the news and stuff get to you. There are companies out there that are looking for you. They're looking to invest in you, but you have to communicate your value. You have to show them why you're the number one person that they need to consider for the opportunities. All right, so hope everyone got a lot of value out of it. And again, thanks so much to Scholarship Track and Veda for inviting me. And now we'll open it up, I believe, to the questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Dean, for sharing your wonderful insights. It was hello. Yeah. Thank you, Dean, for sharing your wonderful insights. It was definitely very beneficial. Like being a fresh grad myself, I definitely learned something new.
Awesome.
Uh,
Okay. Yeah.
so thank you. And we have a few questions. We'll look
Sure.
at them. Yeah. So Sahil asked, should we be having separate resumes for the recruiters and ATS each?
Okay, so Sahil, that's a good question. So Sahil, no, you don't need to have a separate resume. Now, in terms of now, I just wanted to point out something. Right now, it depends on what kind of recruiters you're talking about. Now, if it's a corporate recruiter, right? So a recruiter who's working directly internally at the company you're interested in, yeah, you should customize the resume for the position, right? You should definitely customize it. Now, if it's a staffing agency recruiter, get more details from the staffing agency recruiter about the position. Then they're going to advise you. They're going to say, "Hey, Sahil, you know what? You should highlight this and this on the resume. Make sure you do that." Now, for the ATS, if it's a general resume, then you probably want to put maybe the more detailed version of your resume, and you might want to highlight everything, like all of your academic projects, because you're not sure which position. So again, depends, right? So depends on the type of recruiter. But yeah, there might be some differences here and there, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same resume. You might have to make some adjustments here and there.
Okay. I hope that answers your question, Sahil. Next question. Rohan asks, when all the skills and requirements are matched, still not getting response, even though have followed up with them, what should I do in this scenario?
Right. So Rohan, this is a great question, right? So first of all, Rohan, my advice to you is, now if you're applying directly to the company, right, you should identify who the potential hiring managers are, right? So I'm not sure who you followed up with, but in my experience, most people they're following up with recruiters or HR people, which is great. You can still continue doing that. But as much as possible, Rohan, I want you to identify potential hiring managers, right? So this is where you got to do some research, right? So go to LinkedIn, go to the company page, go to the employees list, maybe narrow it down to your city, your location, and you want to see, okay, who might be a potential hiring manager, and you want to direct message them, right? You want to direct message them to find out, and then this is where you introduce yourself, right? You want to say, hey, I'm Rohan, and that's where you introduce yourself and get in direct contact. So as much as possible, Rohan, try and get in direct contact with potential hiring managers, and that might get you better results. But still be willing to follow up as well. You still need to follow up with them too. So hope that helps, Rohan.
Yeah. So if you have any more questions, like please post them as we'll be ending it soon. That was very insightful, Dean. Like the way you asked you answered the questions, your session, it was nice. I totally found it beneficial.
Good. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. So Rohan asks again, how we can access hidden job market.
Okay, yeah. So Rohan, two things come to mind, right? Number one is staffing agencies, recruitment agencies are one good avenue you can utilize. And I can speak about this confidently because I have worked in the staffing industry. So a lot of times, organizations and clients, they don't want to handle the recruitment themselves. So they would rather outsource it to a third party, such as an agency. So this is why you'll find a lot of agencies, they know about these opportunities somehow magically before any of us, the rest of us do. It's because they have this. So Rohan, connect with recruiters specializing in your field. They might have access to opportunities in the hidden job market, right, that are not publicly advertised. Now, the second thing, Rohan, is Networking. You need to be networking with people in your field, in your industry, right? Even through even through right here on scholarship track, right? Attend events in your industry, in your field. Like, this is where you can connect with hiring managers, hiring teams, even corporate recruiters, HR people at these companies, and they might be aware of opportunities or even upcoming opportunities, right? Maybe the role's not available yet, but they might be like, hey, you know what, Rohan, we're not looking for someone right now, but we have something coming up maybe in a month or two, so let's keep in touch. It might be something like that. So networking is another very important aspect, Rohan. So be visible in as many industry related events for your industry as possible. Now, of course, I'm not saying spend all of your money if these are expensive events. You have to make that decision. Make sure it makes financial sense for you. But there are a lot of great free events as well. So identify these events, institutions that have these events, and network with senior people, hiring managers, and they might have access and knowledge of these opportunities that are upcoming or coming soon at their organization.
Okay.
So yeah, I hope that helps, Ron.
Yeah. So if there are no more questions, then we'll be winding up the session. So thank you, Dean, for being here, first of all.
No problem. My pleasure. Thank you so much, Veda, and thanks so much for inviting me.
Yeah. Okay, then. If anyone wants to communicate with Dean, then I have posted the LinkedIn link for his profile, so you can go through it and connect. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's it.
awesome. Bye, everyone. Everyone, stay fantastic, stay positive, and take action. That's the
Bye.
most important thing. Bye, everyone.